Hey guys, my name's Frank, and this is my workshop. All right, we're back on the Cadet Dozer project. Task right now, I'm fitting up the rear Dozer drive to the frame, and right now I've got these two bolts right here actually go through these two holes, so the frame is about an inch high at this point, but you can see these two bolts right here go through these two holes. Anyway, so I'll bring this down, just fitting it up right now. As you can see, the drive projects out past the rear of the frame a good bit. So my plan is to enclose it, and since I have this piece of frame here that will match up with that, my plan is to cut this here and here, and take this end piece, bring it up here and weld it on. So that'll give us a nice enclosed rear to the frame, and eventually we'll put something on top of it. We'll figure out what to do with it when we get done with that. So we're going to work on that. There's my butchie. All right, look out. Alright, let's get a bigger square here. Let's see where we are. All right, I've got my cut off pieces of frame fitted up here, clamped, put a couple tacks. I've got the rear frame extension tacked on now. So what this will do is we'll protect the hydro from anything from behind, any collisions. We will eventually use this for something. I'm not sure whether we're going to we'll mount some kind of a panel on here to come up. Maybe a piece of a grill. I mean, this is the spacing for the Cub Cadet front grill. So I have another front grill. Maybe we'll put a grill on the rear. That sounds like an interesting idea. We'll play around with that. Okay, well, at least I knew I needed something on here, because when you turn the hydro around, the hydrostat normally comes forward in the frame, but when we turn it around, it sticks out the back. So that extends the frame and closes it in and gives us a better look. I'll come back and we'll weld off these and grind them flush. They don't have to be super strong, so I'm going to run a fairly small bead there to finish off that extension to the rear extension to the frame. We'll come back on something else. cut these two pieces of angle. They'll be welded to the frame like this, one on each side, and they'll support the 2x4 rectangular tubing, which will go around the top. All right, so that's the next step, is to clear some spots off on here so I can weld these angle iron on. So the next item to do here is to reinforce the frame and build the support for the engine and dash and seat. So these angle irons on here, the length and the position is not really critical. We'll weld them to the frame, and then the 2x4 rectangular tubing will sit on top of here. It's 2 inches wide, so it'll overlap this 1.5 inch angle a little bit, sit on the frame and on the angle. So this angle you really won't even see when we're done, because it'll be underneath the rectangular frame. So we're gonna tack this off. I've got 6 spots where I'm going to weld, run a bead a couple inches long, be plenty strong. We'll hit the top of it with a couple spots as well. along here a few places just to hold it. So, all right, that's the next thing to do, and then we'll cut some rectangular tubing. There's my brew. A good boy. All right. Coming around to see what's going on. Okay, I got the angle brackets welded on. The next step is to miter the ends of the front ends here and cut a short piece to go across. Actually, I have it cut, I just need to miter it. And then we'll weld the front on, get everything straight, and see how that looks. I'll probably tack it to the angle brackets along the edge here at a couple different spots. I don't want to weld it fully until I have the engine mount prepared and make sure that they're, you know, the right distance. So this is somewhat of a mock-up. I just cut the rectangular tubing to rough length, roughly 80 inches. I think the finished length I need is 76, but I'm going to miter the corners, so I wanted a couple extra inches to make sure I could do that. Uh-oh, here's my brew. My brew. And there's my butchie. In the shop, it's kind of a nice day outside. It's a little bit cloudy, but it's much cooler than it has been. So if you watched any of the build videos of the motor grader, I spent some time explaining my build approach, and also in the Dozer design video published a couple months ago, I talked about my build methodology, which is, you know, I showed you a sketch last time or in a previous video. I mean, I have an idea of how the mechanics are going to work, but much of the design is in my head. You know, I know the basics about, you know, how the engine will mount, the distance, the space the engine needs to be mounted. It's about, you know, from 9 to 11 inches. I've got 11 inches between these two 2x4 tubing setup. But as I will do frequently over the next, you know, few months as I build this, I'm going to put stuff together, tack it off, maybe leave it, maybe take it apart, try something else. So I think right now at the end here, since I have the hydro extending past the original frame, and I showed you I built this extension for the frame, I think this square tubing is going to stop probably here at the back of this hydro, which will leave about 6 inches, 5 inches of this lower frame protruding beyond the rectangular frame, tubing frame. On the back of the Dozer right now, I'm thinking about a winch. I thought about a ripper. I mean, that's still perhaps a possibility, but I saw a cool D4 Dozer, an old one that had a big winch on the back, and you know, I don't have a vehicle with a winch, so I thought that would be something interesting to put on this. So I mean, I think that's my current thought process now, is the rear of the Dozer is going to have a winch mounted on it. and that will sit on top of this frame. So I've got some work to do, some more measurements to take, and start mitering this tubing to get it to, you know, a square, not square, but rectilinear, square in the sense of square corners, frame that I can sit on top of the angle brackets I just welded on. So let's cut some miters on the Grizzly bandsaw. Actually, I maybe didn't. I have a video on my channel of reviewing this Grizzly bandsaw, the miters, and you know, I didn't give it a rave review when I looked at it, and I saw another guy did a video review of it, and he was super stoked. I'm not super stoked, but it is convenient to be able, and this is the reason I bought it. You can angle the head and cut straight or miters without, you know, with the material lying, you know, in the same position. So I mean, there's some convenience about that. Having to angle the metal all the way across the shop at 45 degrees in order to cut a miter is kind of a hassle. So I mean, it's got its limitations, but we'll cut some miters on it and see how it goes. I'm still waiting for the gasket to put the second hydro back together. I'm about ready to use the old gasket. The supplier sent the shipment to my old address. I moved 5 years ago, and he's been sending stuff to me at my new address, but somehow my old address was still in his system, and my order went to the old address. That's 100 miles away, so anyway, he's supposed to reship it or retrieve it and send it to me, so it's delayed. Anyway, that's why I'm focusing on the frame. You can see where we are now. Got the angle brackets. Oh, there's my Brutus. He's upset because someone is setting off fireworks, and he doesn't like thunder, loud noises, gunfire, or fireworks. So I've got the angle bracket welded 6 different places here on the frame, and that would be plenty strong. And then I'm working on the 2x4 rectangular tubing, and I guess I'm also working on these dogs. So Brutus is so upset with, he's been up on top of me all evening long, and I didn't realize, I thought it was thunder, but I went out and there's no thunder. It's perfectly clear. And then I went out again, and someone's setting off fireworks. I mean, it's miles away, but you can hear it. Or I don't know how far away it is, but it's some distance away, but you can still hear it. Okay, so I'm going to continue working on this rectangular tubing. I'm going to call this the upper frame, and we'll miter the ends. I've got both ends cut here and mitered, cut here. They're not in their final position, of course. They're going to be spaced further back. I've got some nuts welded to the frame here. I need to cut these off so I can slide this back because they interfere with the tubing. So anyway, that's where we are. We'll keep working on this. I need to miter the 2 end pieces. I got this corner out of square. I need to grind these tacks off and redo this. The miters aren't perfect, but they're pretty close. A little bit of a gap, but it's more important that if he's square, that'll be filled by weld. Okay, let's set it up on the frame, see what it looks like. Here's my rationale for the position of this upper frame. I've got it spaced behind this hydro so that I can service these relief valves if I need to. Also, this is the pressure regulator valve under here. So anyway, I can get to these if I need to. So this has to be this far back. And then I've got it sticking about 4 or 5, sticking out about 4 or 5 inches beyond the frame here, which is approximately how much the rear end of the front, it'll become the front, but it's actually the rear end of the hydro transmission that will fit on here. So when we put the transmission in here, it will protrude and pass this frame a couple inches. So this just extends out to that distance, or a little bit beyond. So this will provide some protection for, you know, the front of the transaxle. So I'm not going to tack it in place until I have the front dozer drive installed, and I can at that point I'll probably tack it, but I need to place the engine and make sure I've got you know, proper place for the engine to fit. Then once I do that, then I can tack it a couple more times. I'm torn between welding it on and bolting it on. There's always a decision to be made on whether to weld something or drill and tap it or bolt it. You need to keep serviceability in mind. This is kind of a, you know, seat of the pants build, so I need to think ahead in terms of, can I access the components? Do I need to make something removable so that I can access them? So that's one of the considerations, is you need to be able to service it after the fact. So it's important to take that into account when you make a decision whether to weld something together or bolt it. I'm going to wrap up this video at this point. I'm stymied a little bit by the need for the gasket to put the other hydrostat together to assemble the front dozer drive and install it. So I've done about as much to the frame as I can without having that transaxle installed. So we'll come back next episode with hopefully that hydro assembled and the front dozer drive installed, and we can start working on engine placement and drive shaft, building the drive shaft to connect the two hydrostats. So just so you know where I'm going here in terms of build sequence, I need to get both dozer drives installed, the engine installed, drive shaft between the two transaxles, and the controls for the two hydrostats at least temporarily operational, because I need to test out the dozer drives. Now I might be able to drive them with the drill, and that's an option. So I might actually do that. With getting the engine running involves, you know, a lot more in terms of getting the engine, gas tank, and all that stuff set up for it. So what I may do is rig up the drill, but I do need to have the controls for the hydrostat somewhat operational, so I can put, my plan is to put the wheels and tires back on this, keep them up off the ground, and test the drivetrain with just wheels and tires. Just to, not that it's going to go anywhere, they won't touch the ground, but I'll be able to verify that the front and rear dozer drives operate as expected, and the two hydrostats working together will accomplish that. So that's the plan in terms of methodology, build methodology. So it will be a couple more episodes before I get to the tracks and the sprockets, building the track frame and that sort of thing. But those are coming up. So that's where we are right now. Thanks for watching. Appreciate a thumbs up and a share, and subscribe if you want to, so you can get notifications for upcoming episodes. And I'll see you guys next time.